Hello, Prim friends. I had mentioned on this channel a couple of days ago, or a couple of videos ago, that I had really wanted to do a tutorial on making primitive early American colonial times sugar cones, or sugar molds as they were sometimes referred to. So I have a couple of examples here. This one has more of a flat top shape, and this one has more of the conical shape. And this was actually more traditionally what the shape would have been. So before I go into that, I'm going to give you one tip that you just do not want to miss if you do want to start making these. And I will let you know that at the end so you will not forget, because it is vitally important when you're making these. It does make a difference. The other thing I just wanted to mention, if you can like and subscribe to our channel. I know that there are actually thousands of people that are watching our videos, but they're not all subscribed, and it really helps us and really helps our channel thrive if you would also subscribe. Just hit that button to subscribe. It does not cost anything, and between that and then also ringing that bell, that helps you know when a new video gets released from us. And it helps me know that you are enjoying what our content is. So if you can, like, subscribe, and especially comment below. I have answered all of the comments that I have seen so far. So let me tell you a little bit about making these sugar cones. I have made them many times in the past. They are not difficult, but I do have one tiny ingredient that is very easy to find that I do add to mine. And I'll tell you why I do that. But this was not an easy project this time. I have hunted high and low to be able to find the proper size and shape of a glass to use as a mold. When we lived at our home, we had lived there for several years, I knew where things were. I knew where I had kind of stashed things that I would need. I couldn't find it. We've moved into an apartment while we're waiting for our cape on the corner to be built. And so I could not find the glass that I wanted to use. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, one of the new trends that seems to be out there and has been for several years is that the shape of our traditional now glasses and drinking glasses, water glasses, have this, I'm going to put it up here, it might be easier to see. They sort of have a narrow tip at the bottom, which is what we want. They flare out here about the middle or 3/4 of the way up, but then they kind of nook in at the top. And that would not work for trying to make a sugar mold. You need it to be even on the outside. So I hunted everywhere. I was at Goodwill first, and I will also tell you at the end what my serendipitous surprise was after I didn't find a glass that I was looking for. But I was at Goodwill, I was at Dollar Tree, I went to Target. I was everywhere trying to find a glass so that I could show you an example of what it needed to look like. And I had no success, other than the surprise that I did find at Goodwill, and I'll tell you about that in a bit. So I came home frustrated, and I looked again in a china cabinet that we have most of our things still wrapped from our move, and I was able to find a glass that was going to work perfectly. So here I was running around all over, but as I'll tell you in a minute, it was definitely still worth it. So the type of glass that you want doesn't have to have a base, but typically they do. It is sort of triangular shape at the top. You won't feel nubs or any kind of things on the inside, but the upper part of the top of it is the widest portion. Maybe against this you'll be able to see it. But the upper portion at the top is the widest part, and it goes down evenly through the bottom. And that's what makes this conical shape. I did find, if you're looking for, or maybe you have in your kitchen, Pioneer Woman carries a glass, and I think Walmart does, but they just don't have anything in stock. It's the Pioneer Woman, I believe the shape of the glass is called Amelia. I think they come in 3 colors. 4-pack was like $15.97 or something, but I was going to have to order those to even have them shipped into the store. So this is the type shape that you want. When I was unsuccessful finding that, I did find sort of your traditional bar glass type shape, and that is actually what I used to make this one. And I like the shape. It would be this style after the person of the house or whomever would be using it would nip the top off. The sugar would become very, very hard, rock solid hard. And sugar, again, was so precious that in the early days they actually had sugar chests with locks on them, so that the family help or whomever was in the household would not have been able to steal the sugar from the household. So I'll tell you what my tips are and how I make this. The recipe is extremely simple, but again, the homes in those days would have had, if they were wealthy, if they were well-to-do homeowners or landowners, they would have been more likely to have the white refined sugar. If they weren't, if they were maybe farm or the working class type people, they would have had a less refined sugar. So for every cup of sugar, and in this case right here, I'm using more of a brown sugar, and this is from Aldi's, and it's their, I think they call it like a natural cane sugar. So it's not really a brown sugar. It doesn't have that sticking together kind of a quality, which is actually the addition of molasses to sugar. This is just a cane sugar that has that nice brown color to it. So I'll set that aside. And then the tip or the trick that I use, since these aren't really for eating, they're for using in your displays or in your cupboards, I add meringue powder. And meringue powder will make them dry much faster than they would if you did not include that. It would be days before you could really lift it off of a tray. But it's a very easy recipe to remember. For every cup of sugar, it is 1 teaspoon of meringue powder. So you'll want to move those dry ingredients around, get that slightly incorporated, just so that it's all through it. You don't have any of those white meringue lumps. You do want to make sure that you have as few lumps. If you have older sugar, it's been exposed to some moisture, make sure that you get the lumps out of your sugar. And you do want to close your meringue powder up tightly. Then, again, 1 teaspoon of meringue powder to 1 teaspoon of water. And I had 2 cups in here, so I'm going to be doing 2 teaspoons of the water. You will not believe that that small an amount of water will be able to create the sugar mold like you need it to. But that is honestly, that is all you need. And you really don't want it to be soppy. You're not trying to melt or dissolve the sugar. You're only trying to get it wet enough so that it will hold and bind together. So when you're done mixing this together, it'll sort of be like the consistency, I would say, almost more like a brown sugar. Like it has that ability, it's just enough moisture so that it will bind. You know, when you pack brown sugar for chocolate chip cookies in a cup, it's going to hold really tight. Well, that's the same thing that you want here. So it's just barely damp. All right, so that is ready to go. I have a parchment lined cookie sheet, and I'm going to go ahead and fill this glass. I was really actually pretty disappointed and surprised that the local stores don't even carry glasses in the store. I was sort of shocked actually. I thought everything that I found they were plastic. They were to-go type cups or like gym cups. I suppose maybe with the shipping costs being what they are, they would rather you order it and then have it delivered to the store. So maybe that's the purpose now. But I was just so surprised that I couldn't go to the store and find these glasses. But like I said, those Pioneer Woman, I think they're called Amelia, those were really the most economical, the least expensive that I found, and they look to be exactly the right shape. They're not bad looking glasses either. So I have it pushed in here, and then I'm going to take, I have just a small glass that has a nice flat bottom on it. You don't want to push too hard. I don't want anybody to break the glass. You're just pushing enough to kind of compress that into the glass. So yes, I was everywhere yesterday and I thought, oh my goodness, I'd make this, put that idea out there that I wanted to do this for you all, and then I couldn't find a glass and walked in the door at home frustrated after hours of running around town. But I'll show you in a minute. Yes, I was frustrated, but it was worth it because I found something at the Goodwill that I never in a million years thought that I would find at the Goodwill. Okay, so I did also try doing one. I had found a Goodwill glass. It has the pointy part or the rounded part at the tip, but it doesn't have enough, you can see it against the dark, it doesn't have enough of like a V shape for the amount of sugar that you want in that cone. So after you get that pressed in, you're just going to take it up to your parchment lined tray, flip it over. It's sort of like making sandcastles, when you were a child. Give it a little bit of a tap. Fingers crossed it's going to work on camera, right? Can you see that where it's at? I think so. Okay. I'm going to lift, trying to go very straight. And there it is. So the reason that I use the meringue powder, again, we're not eating it, we're not putting it in our food. It really is just for the purpose of making it dry quicker and dry very, very hard. If you are a baker and you understand that you made royal icing, you know just how hard that icing does compact. So, and I had just made these earlier this afternoon, and I can handle it, which you would not be able to do if it did not have that meringue powder in it. So traditionally, these sugar molds or these sugar cones would have been wrapped in a blue paper, a really brilliant, beautiful blue paper, and then they would have had a red wax stamp on them. Now, the urban legend, I guess you could say, is that many people had taken those blue papers and used them to dye fabrics. A lot of the early clothes would have had that blue, the blue calico. So there's not really historical evidence to show that that happened or that it worked, but it is sort of one of those traditional urban legends that we read about now. These would have been so hard that they would have used what's called a sugar nip to cut the part off or scrape it off. And then they would have had a little mortar and pestle, and they would have ground the sugar down from there. So just imagine the amount of labor it would have taken to do something so common that we do now. Just reach into a sugar bowl and take a spoonful out. It just would not have happened back in those days. So I hope you try these. I hope you try making those. Might be a fun project with your children or your grandchildren. And it is part of our history, which is kind of a fun thing to do, especially at the holidays. So while I was running around all over the place looking for these, and when I was in Goodwill looking high and low, I found all of this stone fruit, alabaster fruit. I was blown away. So I started the process there at the Goodwill and found this whole enormous lot of stone fruit. So even though I was frustrated not being able to find the glass shape that I wanted, and make sure you don't use one that bumps in on the sides, because you will be frustrated, it will not work. You can't flip it over and have that come out. In the end, I was not terribly disappointed about how I had spent all of those hours looking for that. Now, the one tip that I had promised I would tell you that we want to make sure that you do, and it's such a simple thing. You do not want to try to make these on a day where it is raining or extremely humid. They will not work. For whatever reason, that amount of moisture in the air will cause them to not dry properly. They'll get these little bumps on them, and they just won't firm up the way that you want them to. So make sure, if you plan to do this, even if you use just the sugar and the water, again, the mixture is the same. 1 teaspoon of water to 1 cup of sugar. And this would probably use, well, about a cup or so of sugar. But if you decide to do it, make sure it's 1 teaspoon of water to 1 cup of sugar. And then if you do use the meringue powder, it is 1 teaspoon of meringue powder as well. So I hope you will like, subscribe, and share with your Prim-loving friends. We're having so much fun with this channel, and the response has been wonderful. I love reading your comments, and I hope that you will continue to follow along. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.